Jose Aldo out of the UFC. Jose Aldo retired. Both these headlines are going around. I mean, this is standardly the moment where I would take a moment to thank a guy for the memories and to thank him for a career. That's generally what I would do. Particularly if an icon, an idol, like Jose Aldo, called it a career. But there's two different headlines out there, guys. I read a headline that Jose Aldo has retired. I then read a headline that he was released from the UFC. Now, let me explain why there's some confusion here. It appeared as though Jose Aldo had retired in the ring during his last fight. He stayed on his knees. He had a moment. We've also been very clear. Aldo has spoke to us very clearly to tell us he is on one final championship run. So when he lost that fight, that run is now done. Which would mean, why are you here? A question he'd have to ask himself. Why am I here? Why am I still doing this? Cutting down to 135 pounds. I mean, it is a lifestyle change. The commitments that Jose made, why am I still doing it? So it would appear as though he was going to tell us that he was done. Now, his coach, Andre Pedernera, spoke about this. And he was very polite to just say, yeah, I've got no problem with it. I've actually wanted him to be done for a while. Wanted him to be done back when he was on top. I felt as though he had enough fights. Call it good. So we never got a real clarity. And then it comes out that Jose is retired in conjunction with a different website's headline that he's been released. Well, if you read the stories on both, they at least told it the same way, which is Jose's team worked with the UFC to grant him a release. But a release is very different. It really is, because that gives you an opportunity to go and take your skills somewhere else. Boxing seems to be the thing everybody's talking about. There is not these big paydays and this big money. I mean, just so you understand, like those examples are out there, and your highest paydays did come from boxing. Like there's a reason that those stories exist, but please stop doing that. Jose will make more doing MMA. I could also see where the UFC would be very fast to agree and work with him. You have a guy that not everybody can beat. You have a guy on any given day is going to take out one of your young buck up-and-comers. For sure. For sure. You go give Jose 5 fights. He's going to win one of them. I mean, does anybody disagree with that? Guy might win them all. But you understand my point. You're not looking for older fighters. And you have an organization that is very, very disciplined on only having champions and contenders. If you're not one of those two, there's other places to go. But when you come here, champions and contenders, well, now you have a guy that people know. He's a household name. You've got a ton of respect for him. It's very clear that he can win fights. It's very clear that he's not going to be in a championship fight. What do you do? I mean, what would you do with him? If you were the promoter, what would you do? It's a very tough spot. When you're releasing the Overeems of the world and the Damian Maias of the world, when you're doing that in front of everybody, you tend to be consistent. So if Jose's team was to go to the UFC and go, look, give us a release. I don't want tied up. And a release is a very big deal. You could fight out your contract. You're not released. Just so you understand. A release means right now, effective immediately, I can go and begin other conversations and accept other offers should I choose. So there would be very good reason that the team would work with the UFC, but the UFC would also work back. Yes, of course. You don't have to tell us if you're retired. You don't have to tell us if you're ever going to do this again. We will all just agree that you're not going to do this here. So what does that look like for Jose? Does Jose go into boxing? I mean, really, I really, guys, I got to tell you, I am very compelled to just thank him for the memories. If anybody had a career that I would love to have emulated or to have the ability to pass to my son or somebody, I mean, Jose Aldo, I didn't think there's a bigger compliment that I could give him. I'm just not convinced that we're having a retirement talk. A guy knowing when it's over, he will be the last one to know. He'll be the last one that recognizes and realizes the audience doesn't want to see me and promoters don't want to pay me. He will think he can come back. He will talk about coming back at some point in his life. And I don't mean Jose, I mean the fighter. He'll be removed for 2 years. He wasn't a main event when he left. He wasn't selling out arenas when he left, and think that he could come back and do some great night of business. That's okay. It's hard to know. Self-awareness is hard for all of us, right? We just see it more a lot of times with fighters. I bring that to you because if Jose is to go in the world of boxing, it will not be about contenderships. It won't be for championships. Now, somebody might pay him a level of money. It will be very small compared to the sum that you think it's going to be. It'll be very small compared to the sum that he probably thinks he could go get right now. But if they bring him in, it's a tremendous if. It's to get beat up. And it doesn't mean that he will. That's the risk that you got to take sometimes. People give you an opportunity. You're the lamb going to slaughter. You're going to bet the house on everything that I can go out and I can beat that guy. I can flip the script. I can run back the clock. No problem. That's their business. But don't make a mistake. That's the only way that somebody will pick up Jose. They will put him in there with a 20-something-year-old who they are very confident is going to go and dispose of him and that they can use and get an ROI and get an investment in the future. Nobody, see, fighters don't understand the business side of it. They think that tonight, I can sell a bunch of tickets tonight. No promoter cares. We're going to start tonight where I'm likely to lose money. What can I do with you after that? Can I go get 4 more houses out of you? Most of you, the answer is no, but for the one of you that comes along and the answer is yes, off we go and everybody gets fed. I mean, that's the way it works. People don't understand that. And by the way, how would Jose do in boxing? What a great striker. What a great striker, but if there's ever been a great striker who relied on kicks, it's Jose. Right? Edson Barboza, I suppose you would throw into that same category, where you've got this tremendous striker, but if you were to take the kicks away, you really would limit him, you really would change him. Like Jose Aldo, all of his great combinations are finished with a kick, and they are powerful. I still remember the day that I waved to Uriah Faber as they were taking him in a stretcher out the back. I wasn't waving. It was like this time of morning. Uriah's on a stretcher in his hometown, and they're taking him out the back to put him in an ambulance. And Uriah was in a good mood. He was smiling. He's like, "Hey, what's up, Chael?" He had his phone. He was sending text messages. Like, you're just not going to get Uriah to have a bad day. But I remember that day. Uriah wasn't on that stretcher because he couldn't walk. His legs were he felt fine. He felt fine, but his legs no longer work because Jose chopped him for 15 minutes. I mean, if there's ever been a guy that does, with his striking game, rely on the kicks, it's Jose. Of course I believe that he could go box. Of course I recognize that he has good skills. I also know there's not a promoter that's going to pick up an older guy. When you get released and then you think, okay, I got to go test my worth. No, you just got released. They should have kept that very private. Very, very private. If Dana White, the most known promoter, no longer, right? I mean, do you understand? They should have been very private. We should not know that he was released. We should not know the terms of that agreement. And nobody ever would have fact-checked it or corrected it had they told the story the right way, which is Jose has fallen out his UFC contract. The UFC is banging on the door, and they're trying to get us back, but we are going to go test the market. Nobody would have ever corrected that. And that's the way that story should have been told.